Jeff Jarrett. Jeffrey Leonard Jarrett, born July 14, 1967, is an American professional wrestler, professional wrestling promoter and businessman, currently signed to WWE as a backstage producer and occasional on-air talent. Beginning his career in his father's Continental Wrestling Association, CWA, in 1986, Jarrett first came to prominence upon debuting in the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now WWE, in 1992. Over the next 9 years, he alternated between the WWF and its main competitor, World Championship Wrestling, WCW. After WCW was purchased by the WWF in 2001, Jarrett joined the upstart World Wrestling All-Stars, WWA, promotion. In 2002, Jarrett and his father together founded Total Nonstop Action, TNA, now known as Impact Wrestling. After departing the promotion in 2014, Jarrett founded another new promotion, Global Force Wrestling, GFW. After a failed merger with TNA and GFW, he cut ties with TNA. Jarrett then wrestled in Mexico for Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide before returning to WWE in January 2019 as an on-screen talent and producer. A third-generation wrestler and promoter, Jarrett has had 81 championship reigns throughout his career, among them the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, 6 times, WCW World Heavyweight Championship, 4 times, WWA World Heavyweight Championship, twice, USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship, 3 times, and AAA Mega Championship, twice. He was inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame in 2015 and the WWE Hall of Fame in 2018. Professional wrestling career. Early career, 1986–1993. Born in Hendersonville, Tennessee, Jarrett became involved with basketball when he was in high school, but he worked for his father Jerry Jarrett's Continental Wrestling Association as a referee in March 1986 and trained as a wrestler under his father and Tojo Yamamoto. Jarrett made his in-ring debut at the age of 18 on April 6, 1986 when jobber Tony Falk attempted to end his lengthy losing streak by challenging Jarrett, then a referee, to a match. Jarrett accepted the challenge, wrestling Falk to a 10-minute draw. Jarrett is a third-generation wrestler. His father wrestled, as did his maternal grandfather, Eddie Marlin, while his paternal grandmother, Christine, was employed by Nashville-based wrestling promotion Gulas/Welch Promotions. He also wrestled with the American Wrestling Association, AWA, and the Continental Wrestling Federation, CWF, in the late 1980s. In 1989, his father Jerry purchased the Texas-based World Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW, promotion and merged it with the CWA to create the United States Wrestling Association, USWA. Over the following years, Jarrett won the USWA Southern Heavyweight Championship on 10 occasions and the USWA World Tag Team Championship on 15 occasions. Jarrett also wrestled on the independent circuit for 7 years, appearing in Japan and Puerto Rico. In 1990, he wrestled his first tour of Japan for Super World Sports, SWS. In 1993, he was hired by the World Wrestling Federation. Jarrett would continue wrestling for USWA full-time until losing the championship to Jerry Lawler on December 20, 1993, but returned sporadically for future dates. World Wrestling Federation. Early appearances, 1992–1994. Jarrett's first involvement with World Wrestling Federation, WWF, came on August 9, 1992, when he participated in the kickoff to the first cross-promotional angle between the WWF and the USWA. Sitting at ringside along with Jerry Lawler at the WWF house show that was being held at the Pyramid in Memphis, Tennessee, he issued an open challenge to any WWF wrestler. After defeating Kamala by disqualification that night, Bret Hart accepted Jarrett's challenge for a match the next time that the WWF came to Memphis. Beginning in October, Jarrett himself began making appearances on WWF house show events, defeating Mondo Clean, who would later debut as Damien Demento, and Barry Horowitz. At a WWF Wrestling Challenge taping in Louisville, Kentucky on October 28, Jarrett scored his biggest victory of his nascent WWF career by upsetting Rick Martel. However, the scheduled match between Bret Hart and Jarrett on October 31 in Memphis was cancelled due to poor weather. Following the cancelled Memphis show, he returned to the USWA. Eventually, Jarrett would go on to lose many WWF house show matches with Bret Hart starting in early December 1993, then again in early January 1994, but not in his hometown of Memphis. Nearly a year later, Jarrett returned to the WWF. He made his televised debut on October 23, 1993 on WWF Superstars as a heel under the gimmick of Double J Jeff Jarrett, a country music singer who intended to elevate his singing career through his exposure as a wrestler. Jarrett's character would strut to the ring wearing flashing Double J hats and ring attire, while he punctuated his promos with the phrase "Ain't I great?" He ended his interviews by distinctly spelling out his name, that's Jeff, Jarrett. Jarrett had his first televised match with the WWF on the December 20, 1993 episode of Raw, defeating PJ Walker. Jarrett made his pay-per-view debut in January 1994 at the Royal Rumble, entering the Royal Rumble match as the 12th participant and was eliminated less than 90 seconds later by Randy Savage. Also at the Royal Rumble, Jarrett participated in attacking The Undertaker and forcing him into the casket, an incident that would be a focal point in Undertaker's rematch later that year. Jarrett was scheduled to wrestle in a 5 vs 5 tag match at WrestleMania X, but the match did not take place due to time constraints. However, the match did take place on the April 4 episode of Raw, with Jarrett's team winning. During this time, Jarrett started having what would be a very long string of matches with Doink, Ray Apollo, during house shows in which he usually won the match. Despite getting past Lex Luger by count-out in the first round, Jarrett lost in the second round of the 1994 King of the Ring tournament, being pinned by the 1-2-3 Kid. Only weeks before SummerSlam, the WWF promoted a match as part of a rap versus country rivalry that pitted Jarrett against Mabel, who portrayed a rapper. There was little build-up for the match until Mabel tried to provoke Jarrett into a fight, but Jarrett simply exited. At SummerSlam, Jarrett won the match by pinfall. Around this time, Jarrett began a feud with the 1-2-3 Kid's friend, Intercontinental Champion Razor Ramon. Jarrett would face both men at Survivor Series. Jarrett's team competed in another 5 vs 5 tag team match, this time with elimination rules. Jarrett's team lost when all the members of the team including himself were counted out. Later during the event, Jarrett once again tried to illegally attack The Undertaker, but this time was stopped by Chuck Norris. In January 1995, Jarrett would once again feud with Bret Hart, ultimately losing to Hart on the January 23 episode of Raw. Intercontinental Champion, 1995-1996. At the Royal Rumble in Tampa, Florida, Jarrett defeated Razor Ramon to win the Intercontinental Championship. In an effort to become a dual champion, Jarrett challenged Diesel for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship in the main event of the February 20 episode of Raw, but lost the match. Razor Ramon received a rematch at WrestleMania 11, which Jarrett lost by disqualification, but retained the Intercontinental Championship. Jarrett was then joined by the Roadie, with the duo losing to Razor Ramon in a handicap match at In Your House 1. On April 26, 1995, the Intercontinental Championship was declared vacant after a controversial ending to a match between Jarrett and Bob Holly. They had a rematch later that evening where Jarrett reclaimed the title. On May 19, Razor Ramon regained the title from Jarrett in Montreal, Quebec, but Jarrett won it back 2 nights later in Trois-Rivières, Quebec, making him a 3-time Intercontinental Champion. At In Your House 2, The Lumberjacks on July 23, 1995, Jarrett performed the song With My Baby Tonight. Later that evening, Jarrett lost the Intercontinental Championship to Shawn Michaels. Following the event, Jarrett left the WWF for 5 months and returned to the USWA. Jarrett returned to the WWF at In Your House 5 on December 17, 1995, feuding with Ahmed Johnson. Jarrett lost to Johnson by disqualification at the 1996 Royal Rumble and left the WWF shortly thereafter due to a contract dispute. Later that year, the roadie revealed that he had in fact sung with My Baby Tonight and that Jarrett had been lip-syncing. World Championship Wrestling, 1996–1997. In October 1996, Jarrett was hired by World Championship Wrestling, WCW, signing a 1-year contract. Upon debuting in WCW, Jarrett became a free agent in the rivalry between the Four Horsemen and the New World Order, NWO. After defeating Chris Benoit at Starrcade, and Steve McMichael, both by cheating when the referee was distracted, Jarrett was reluctantly inducted into the Four Horsemen. On June 9, 1997, Jarrett defeated Dean Malenko to win the United States Heavyweight Championship. In mid-1997, Jarrett was kicked out of the Four Horsemen and began feuding with Horsemen member Steve McMichael. Despite aligning himself with McMichael's then-wife, Deborah McMichael, Jarrett lost the United States Heavyweight Championship to McMichael on August 21. In October, Jarrett's contract expired and he opted to return to the WWF, despite the dominance of WCW in the ongoing Monday Night Wars. Return to WWF. NWA Invasion, 1997–1998. Jarrett returned to the WWF on the October 20, 1997 episode of Raw is War, delivering a worked-shoot speech in which he criticized both WCW President Eric Bischoff and WWF Chairman Vince McMahon. After briefly feuding with The Undertaker, Jarrett defeated Barry Windham to win the vacant NWA North American Heavyweight Championship. In early 1998, Jarrett joined forces with Jim Cornette and his stable of invading National Wrestling Alliance wrestlers, and began defending the North American Heavyweight Championship on WWF television. In March, Jarrett left Cornette's stable, and Cornette stripped him of the title and awarded it to Windham. Teaming with Owen Hart and title reigns, 1998–1999. Jarrett went on to reprise his country music singer gimmick on the March 2, 1998 edition of Monday Night Raw, introducing Tennessee Lee as his new manager. At Unforgiven, In Your House on April 26, 1998, Jarrett once again sang alongside Sawyer Brown with their hit single, Some Girls Do. On the June 1, 1998 edition of Raw, Tennessee Lee introduced Southern Justice, formerly known as the Godwins, as Jarrett's new bodyguards. On the August 9, 1998 edition of Sunday Night Heat, Jarrett fired Tennessee Lee after he had inadvertently cost Jarrett multiple matches in the preceding weeks. Jarrett and Southern Justice then began feuding with D-Generation X, DX, with Jarrett losing to DX member X-Pac in a hair versus hair match at SummerSlam. Jarrett's long hair was subsequently cut short by DX and Howard Finkel, who had himself been shaved bald by Jarrett and Southern Justice shortly before SummerSlam. Jarrett and Southern Justice were defeated by DX at Breakdown in September, and the trio separated shortly thereafter. Jarrett briefly feuded with Al Snow before reuniting with Deborah, who had left WCW for the WWF, and forming a tag team with Owen Hart. Hart and Jarrett were close friends and travel partners for years, so the team gelled almost immediately. Jarrett and Hart won the WWF Tag Team Championship from Ken Shamrock and the Big Boss Man, successfully defending the titles at WrestleMania 15 before losing to Kane and X-Pac on an episode of Raw. 8 days after Hart died in a stunt that went wrong at Over the Edge, Jarrett defeated The Godfather, who Owen was scheduled to face at the pay-per-view, for the Intercontinental Championship. As he was handed the title belt, he yelled Hart's name in tribute to his friend. In mid-1999, Jarrett exchanged the Intercontinental Championship with Edge and D'Lo Brown on 2 more occasions. His 5th reign broke Razor Ramon's record from 1995. He held the record until Chris Jericho's 7th reign in 2004. In the months that followed, Jarrett became increasingly abusive towards Deborah. At SummerSlam, Jarrett challenged D'Lo Brown for both the WWF European and Intercontinental Championships, with Deborah accompanying Brown to the ring following an argument with Jarrett. Brown lost the match after both Mark Henry and Deborah turned on him, making Jarrett the second ever Eurocontinental Champion. On the following episode of Raw, Jarrett rewarded Deborah and Henry by giving Deborah an assistant, Miss Kitty, and Henry the European Championship. In late 1999, Jarrett began feuding with Chyna over the Intercontinental Championship. In the course of the feud, Jarrett became somewhat misogynistic, attacking numerous females, including both wrestlers and actress Cindy Margolis, and executing the figure 4 leglock on them. Jarrett eventually abandoned Deborah in favor of Miss Kitty after he and Deborah were defeated by Stephanie McMahon and Test in a mixed tag team match. He later also turned on Miss Kitty after she lost a match that Jarrett had inserted her into in his place. Jarrett left the WWF in October 1999, right after WWF head writer Vince Russo resigned from the WWF in order to join WCW. Jarrett's contract expired on October 16, 1999, one day before his scheduled match with Chyna at No Mercy. Jarrett wrestled at No Mercy nonetheless, losing the Intercontinental Championship to Chyna. Chyna later alleged that Jarrett and Russo had colluded in order to delay Jarrett's title defense until after Jarrett's contract had expired, and that Jarrett had subsequently made a deal with WWF chairman Vince McMahon for $300,000 in order to wrestle at No Mercy without a contract. In 2006, Jarrett asserted that he had been paid only what he was owed by the WWF. In a 2008 interview for a TNA special, Jarrett stated that not only were his negotiations cordial and in good faith, but that he also got stock options in WWF's IPO, which occurred 2 days after he left. Returned to WCW. NWO 2000, 1999-2000. Jarrett returned to WCW on the October 18, 1999 episode of Monday Nitro, attacking Buff Bagwell and proclaiming himself the chosen one of WCW. Jarrett took part in a tournament for the vacant WCW World Heavyweight Championship, winning his first 3 matches with the assistance of Creative Control. At Mayhem, he was eliminated from the tournament after losing his semi-final match to Chris Benoit following interference from Dustin Rhodes. At Starrcade, Jarrett defeated Rhodes in a bunkhouse brawl, then unsuccessfully challenged Benoit for the United States Heavyweight Championship in a ladder match. On the following episode of Nitro, Jarrett defeated Benoit in a rematch, winning the belt. In the same evening, Jarrett reformed the NWO with WCW World Heavyweight Champion Bret Hart and the reigning WCW World Tag Team Champions Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, with the foursome calling themselves NWO 2000. In early 2000, Jarrett feuded with WCW Commissioner Terry Funk, who forced him to wrestle 3 veterans George Steele, Tito Santana, and Jimmy Snuka in one night. Jarrett was stripped of the United States Heavyweight Championship after suffering a concussion during his bout with Snuka, but the title was returned to him by Nash after he became WCW Commissioner. In order to help him retain the title, Jarrett drafted the Harris brothers, formerly Creative Control, into NWO 2000. In the following months, Jarrett repeatedly challenged Sid Vicious for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, in the process clashing with Nash and winning the position of WCW Commissioner for himself. Following Bret Hart's retirement, the NWO disbanded. World Heavyweight Champion, 2000-2001. In April, WCW was rebooted by Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo, with all titles vacated as a result. Bischoff and Russo also created the New Blood, a stable of younger wrestlers who feuded with the Millionaires Club, made up of the older members of the WCW roster. Jarrett joined the New Blood, and at Spring Stampede on April 16, he defeated Millionaires Club member Diamond Dallas Page to win the vacant WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Page regained the title on April 24, and on April 25, the title was contested in a tag team match pitting Jarrett and Bischoff against Page and actor David Arquette. Arquette won the WCW World Heavyweight Championship after pinning Bischoff. Jarrett hit Page with the championship belt while special referee Kimberly Page's back was turned. WCW official Mickey J counted Bischoff out while Jarrett had Page pinned, who kicked out. At Slamboree on May 7, Jarrett defeated Page and Arquette in a three-way triple cage match to win his second WCW World Heavyweight Championship after Arquette turned on Page. In May, Jarrett won and lost the WCW World Heavyweight Championship on two further occasions, regaining the title from Ric Flair both times. Jarrett feuded with Nash and Hulk Hogan throughout June 2000, and on July 9 at Bash at the Beach, he faced Hogan with the World Championship on the line. The match ended swiftly after Jarrett immediately laid down, allowing Hogan to rest a boot on his chest and win the title, with Hogan commenting, "That's why this company is in the damn shape it's in, because of bullshit like this." Vince Russo subsequently came to the ring and delivered a profanity-laced statement, in which he accused Hogan of politicking and claimed that Hogan had used his creative control to refuse to lose to Jarrett. Russo then stated that, while Hogan was free to keep the title belt he had just won, the Hulk Hogan Memorial Belt, Jarrett would wrestle Booker T for the official WCW World Heavyweight Championship later that night. Booker T won the match and Hogan did not appear in WCW again. It is disputed whether the situation was a shoot, a work, or some combination of the two. In the following months, Jarrett briefly feuded with Booker T, Mike Awesome, Sting, Buff Bagwell, and Flair. In late 2000, he joined forces with the Harris brothers once more, with the trio defeating the Filthy Animals at Starrcade on December 17. In the same evening, Jarrett aligned himself with WCW World Heavyweight Champion Scott Steiner by helping Steiner defeat Sid Vicious. In 2001, Jarrett and Steiner became members of the Magnificent Seven, a large stable headed by Flair. Flair and Jarrett feuded with Dusty and Dustin Rhodes until March, when WCW was purchased by the WWF. Uninterested in Jarrett, the WWF neglected to acquire his contract, leaving him without a job. On the March 26 episode of the WWF's Raw program, which coincided with the final episode of Nitro, company owner Vince McMahon was seen watching Jarrett within the WCW venue on a television set. Mocking Jarrett's trademark of distinctly spelling out his name, McMahon stated that Jarrett would be capital G, double O, double N, double E Goonie. World Wrestling All-Stars, 2001-2003. As both WCW and the WWF now ruled out as employment options, Jarrett resurfaced in World Wrestling All-Stars, WWA, in late 2001, wrestling throughout Australia and Europe. Jarrett won the WWA World Heavyweight Championship, but was later stripped of the title. Jarrett returned to the WWA during his first NWA World Heavyweight Championship reign. He defeated Sting for the WWA World Heavyweight Championship at the last WWA event on May 25, 2003, unifying the two titles. Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling. NWA World Heavyweight Champion, 2002-2006. In June 2002, Jarrett and his father created a limited liability company, J Sports and Entertainment, and opened a new pro wrestling promotion, Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling, TNA. TNA aired in a weekly pay-per-view format until May 2004, when the promotion negotiated a TV deal with Fox Sports Net and began broadcasting Impact. In November 2004, TNA began airing monthly pay-per-views instead of weekly pay-per-views, and in October 2005 Impact moved to Spike TV. Panda Energy and its chairman and CEO, Robert Carter, acquired a controlling interest in TNA in 2002, although Jarrett remained a minority owner. On the inaugural TNA pay-per-view on June 19, 2002, Jarrett took part in a gauntlet for the gold with the NWA World Heavyweight Championship on the line, but was eliminated by country singer Toby Keith. In the following months, Jarrett feuded with Scott Hall, Brian Lawler, and Brian Gerard James. On November 20, 2002, Jarrett defeated Ron Killings to win the NWA World Championship with the assistance of Vince Russo. After Jarrett refused to join Russo's Sports Entertainment Extreme stable, Russo turned the members of Sex, including the debuting Raven, against Jarrett. The rivalry continued until February 2003, when Russo parted ways with Sex. In the following months, Jarrett feuded with the remaining members of Sex, then began feuding with Raven and Raven's Nest, the group of wrestlers that Raven controlled. On June 11, 2003, Jarrett faced Raven and AJ Styles in a three-way match for the NWA World Championship. Styles pinned Jarrett to win the title after the returning Russo struck Jarrett with a guitar. Jarrett regained the title from Styles on October 22, 2003, turning heel. Jarrett was unable to escape Styles, losing the title to him on April 21, 2004 in a steel cage after Russo, who had returned as the new TNA Director of Authority, chose Styles to replace the injured Chris Harris. Jarrett would get revenge on May 19, however, by hitting Styles with a guitar during a title match, which enabled Ron Killings to win the title. Jarrett then defeated Killings, Styles, Raven, and Harris in a King of the Mountain match on June 2 to win his third NWA World Championship. In early 2005, Jarrett formed a dominant stable known as Planet Jarrett with Monty Brown, Kip James, and, later, Rhino. Jarrett also uses the phrase Planet Jarrett to refer to TNA as a whole, reflecting his real-life stake in the company and his prominent role within the promotion. On April 3, 2005, Jarrett defended the championship outside NWA territory, wrestling Ray Gonzalez in the International Wrestling Association. Gonzalez won with a clean pin and briefly held the belt, being stripped on the same card. The championship was returned to Jarrett and the change was not recorded as official by TNA or the NWA. Despite his efforts to hold on to the title, however, he lost it to longtime rival Styles on May 15, 2005. Jarrett won his fourth NWA World Heavyweight Championship on September 15, 2005, defeating Raven at a Border City Wrestling (BCW) event. He lost the title to Rhino at Bound for Glory on October 23, but regained it on the November 3 episode of Impact. Jarrett's reign lasted until Against All Odds on February 12, 2006, when he was defeated by Christian Cage. In the following months, Jarrett feuded with Sting, who had declared that Jarrett was a cancer in TNA. In the course of the feud, Scott Steiner debuted in TNA as an ally of Jarrett. At Slammiversary on June 18, 2006, Jarrett won his sixth NWA World Championship in a King of the Mountain match when referee Earl Hebner tipped over a ladder that Christian Cage and Sting were simultaneously climbing. He retained the title in a bout with Sting at Hard Justice after Cage turned on Sting, hitting him with one of Jarrett's guitars. After a polygraph proved that Jarrett had cheated to win the NWA World Championship, Director of Authority Jim Cornette forced Jarrett to wrestle Samoa Joe in a Fans Revenge Lumberjack match at No Surrender, with Joe winning the match. At the Bound for Glory pay-per-view on October 22, Sting defeated Jarrett for the NWA World Championship after Jarrett was forced to submit to Sting's signature finisher, the Scorpion Death Lock. Various feuds, 2007-2010. On the following episode of Impact, Jarrett announced in an interview that he was leaving TNA indefinitely. For the following 6 months, Jarrett did not appear on TNA television, instead focusing on his role as Vice President of TNA Entertainment. Jarrett, however, temporarily returned to TNA television on the April 12, 2007 episode of Impact, and aligned himself with Samoa Joe, by helping him defeat AJ Styles, turning face. On April 15, 2007 at Lockdown, Jarrett, making his in-ring return, and the rest of Team Angle defeated Team Cage in a lethal lockdown match. The following episode of Impact, he delivered his first promo in months, stating it's not all about Jeff Jarrett and he returned to give back to the wrestlers and fans, officially completing his face turn. He then entered into a feud with Robert Roode, losing a match to him at Sacrifice. Jarrett was then scheduled to take on Styles with the winner to earn a spot in the King of the Mountain match but could not compete due to personal issues. In 2008, Jarrett was featured in the promotion of TNA's Maximum Impact Tour of the UK. At Hard Justice, Samoa Joe defeated Booker T using the acoustic equalizer, the trademark move of Jarrett, setting up for his return to in-ring action, as quoted by the website. "Obviously, we all know who used a guitar in the past," referring indirectly to Jarrett. After numerous weeks of Jarrett's theme song playing and his guitar appearing on TNA programming, Jarrett returned to Impact. On September 11, 2008. At No Surrender, he would help Joe defeat Kurt Angle and Cage and assist Joe in retaining the TNA World Heavyweight Championship by hitting Angle with a guitar, keeping him a face. The following Thursday on Impact, Jarrett cut his first promo since Slammiversary, claiming that the current respect angle that Sting was involved in was actually a matter of the veterans refusing to pass the torch to the young guys. Angle came out and challenged Jarrett to a match at Bound for Glory 4, but Jarrett refused, saying he had nothing left to prove, and instead pointed to the screen to reveal the debuting Mick Foley. On the next episode of Impact, Jarrett relented to verbal cheap shots taken by Angle regarding Jarrett's children and accepted the match at Bound for Glory. The feud got more personal due to Angle mentioning Jarrett's wife, which led to Foley being named the special enforcer for their match. At Bound for Glory, Jarrett returned to the ring after a 17-month absence, and defeated Angle using his acoustic equalizer. On the November 20, 2008 episode of Impact, Kurt Angle threatened Mick Foley and wanted another match against Jarrett at Final Resolution after Foley announced that it was Angle vs Rhino at the event. Angle continued to demand a match with Jarrett, and he said if he couldn't get him at Final Resolution, he would wrestle Foley. Angle then slapped Foley, causing Jarrett to come out and talk about what Angle wanted and then what Jarrett wanted, Angle to be fired. Because of Angle's contract clause, Jarrett could not fire him, so he made this stipulation: if Angle lost to Rhino, he would be fired from TNA, if Angle beat Rhino, he would get Jarrett at Genesis. Angle won, allowing him to face Jarrett at Genesis. The feud got even more personal when it started involving Jarrett's 3 daughters during the December 11, 2008 episode of Impact. Angle said that they would become orphans after Genesis and that Uncle Kurt may find it in his heart to adopt them and make them his. Jarrett came out to confront him but was held back by his longtime friend, B.G. James, TNA personnel Terry Taylor, referee Earl Hebner, and Scott D'Amore. On January 11 at Genesis, Jarrett lost to Angle. Jarrett suffered some injuries, but able to compete on the TNA Maximum Impact Tour, by facing against Angle in 2 singles and a few tag team matches with AJ Styles against Angle and Scott Steiner. Then on February 12, 2009, Jarrett returned to Impact. To stop Angle from forcing Sting to lay down and gain an easy championship victory. The next week, Jarrett allowed Angle to have another match against Sting, and on February 26, 2009 Jarrett announced Angle vs Sting at Destination X for the TNA World Championship. Jarrett would then enter a feud with Mick Foley, who attacked him while shooting his DVD at the TNA Asylum. The two would meet in a 4-way match at Sacrifice involving Kurt Angle and Sting, with Jarrett putting his voting shares in TNA on the line, Angle putting his leadership of the main event Mafia, Sting putting his career, and Foley putting the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Sting would go on to pin Angle for the victory and leadership of the Mafia. Jarrett later pinned Eric Young in order to qualify for the King of the Mountain match. However, Young attacked Jarrett after the match in the storyline. The following week, Jarrett called out Young and offered to turn the other cheek, but instead Young provoked him by saying that he pays more attention to wrestling than his own daughters, just like his father Jerry, which resulted in Jarrett slapping Young and assaulting him. Jarrett also would accidentally punch referee Earl Hebner while Hebner was trying to separate the two. On the June 11 episode of Impact, Mick Foley kayfabe fined and suspended Jarrett and threw him out of the arena as a punishment. The following week, Foley threw a party for Jarrett and welcomed his return to TNA in order to have him on his side at Slammiversary. At Slammiversary, Jarrett refused to give Foley the belt in the King of the Mountain match, which was won by Kurt Angle after assistance from Samoa Joe. Shortly after Slammiversary, Jarrett once again disappeared from TNA programming. During his hiatus, it was reported that Jarrett had lost all of his backstage power in TNA and would return only as a wrestler. On the December 3 episode of Impact, Jarrett made his first